Here we are, folks, today, going live today, talking about things that we've heard ourselves and we've experienced. One of the things we're talking about is something that Yanis Varoufakis, excuse me if I pronounce his name incorrectly, a Greek economist, was talking about today. He was talking about something called techno feudalism. Techno feudalism. What is it? Well, if you look at the feudal system, you'll find that you had the people who were the lords and the nobles, and you had the serfs. The serfs worked the land, and they were actually the property of the people who had the rights to the land and the power to use armies and things like that. What he is saying is this: we are getting a new feudal system coming into being, but now the feudal lords do not own the land. They own all of the technology, the computers, the cars, the planes, the AI, all of this is owned by a very small group of people. Nowadays, many billionaires who are owning things, radio stations, TV stations, everything important, the medical establishment, and they are in total control of who and what we have access to. This is very interesting. I've always thought that we were moving to a new feudal system, but now it seems very apparent when you and I, the average individual, cannot really control what's going on in the world anymore. We go out and we vote. We try to be good citizens. We vote for democracies and work in a democracy, especially in this country, in the US. We go out and we vote every day, but we end up voting not for the person we want, but for the person who will do less harm. And each time, the person who would do less harm becomes worse and worse until we find ourselves now with a $34 trillion debt for this country, something that can never be repaid, and people are still the ones with power, spending money on bombs, spending money on weapons, spending money on police forces in order to beat down anyone who resists. And we are being driven into poverty more and more each and every day. Poverty and despair, and no one can do anything about it because our representatives don't seem to care. And that, I think, is a problem for all of us because there's nothing we can do about it. There's nothing we can do about it because we will never come together in order to create a better society. All that they have to do is to use some type of old trigger words or old memories, hurt, anger, and pain that we have not dealt with in the past. And if we all come together and work together to create a better world, to create cooperatives, to produce the things we need, all they have to do is send in one or two people to undermine it or throw in some type of homophobia or racism or some type of thing that we haven't dealt with. And we turn on each other and they watch in glee. Nowadays, the far right does it by using anger. They make us all angry about the injustices that have taken place, and they tell people that they're going to help them. They're going to recover their worth and dignity. They're going to get them good wages again, good housing, and all of that. That is the promise. But that never comes to fruition because when those autocrats who are working for the people who are causing all the pain get in charge, they just give more money to the new feudal lords. And the other people, the Democrats, liberals, are using fear of those on the right, fear of what's going to happen if these Nazi type figures get in power, fear of the crowds coming in and taking one place. all of the things that make us afraid of what goes bump in the night. So we have one side using fear to drive people, one using anger to drive people, but all that it is doing is basically dividing us, conquering us, and moving us into a place of pain, suffering, and sadness until one day we may all end up like those people on the Gaza Strip wanting to rebel, but it will be too late. Trapped in a little town or city and bombed from above and starved to death until we submit to either leaving or being slaves. Or we can be the ones who beat the slaves, who murder the slaves, who cause pain and suffering and death, and who die on the inside as a result of it, as the world dissolves because of global warming, earthquakes, floods, all of these things taking place because of the way we have been treating the earth badly. We're doing fracking all over the place. And now in New York and Pennsylvania, where there was fracking done, you have earthquakes. Tides are rising. Temperature is very strange, but we keep going. We won't get rid of the cause of global warming because the oil companies have to be able to sell their old cars and to sell all that petroleum until there's not one drop left. The Chinese are ahead in electric vehicles. They can give us electric vehicles right now, but we're not allowed to buy those because the oil companies don't want us to have those. They don't want to compete. They want to overcharge us for these electric vehicles that are no better than the ones that cost $3,000 or $4,000 in China, and guilt trip us if we don't want to buy them by telling us we're causing global warming when we don't have a chance to do anything else. That's the world we find ourselves in. And I'm only saying this to say that, it's time for us to get beyond all of these differences and get together. It's time for us to interact with each other. It's time for us to talk. It's time for us to stop fighting on social media and beginning to organize on social media, to listen to each other's points of view, and if nothing else, find a way to create a pluralistic society where people can live with the groups and in the cultures that they like without having to be afraid that someone else is going to come in and force them to change it. We can live in a pluralistic society. We can live in places where there are different ideas, different cultures, different economic systems, all right next to each other. But in order to do that, we have to take care of the one group that has been causing all the pain and suffering in the world. You see, I think there are basically two types of people, three at most. We have one group who wants to live in peace and love and create a wonderful, beautiful world for everybody. We have a group that wants to be left alone to do what they want to do as long as it's not hurting anyone else. And the third group, the horrible group that has been existing probably since the beginning of the time, are the ones who want to control other people and who will not be satisfied until they rule over everyone. Those are the ones who have been making life on this earth miserable for the last 400 or 500,000 years, and according to Vedic philosophy, longer than that. These are the ones that we have to be afraid of and that we have to shut down, not the immigrants, not the blacks, not the whites, not the working class or the middle class, or even all of the rich, but those who demand to be in control of everyone else and everything else, and they are embedded in every group where we find ourselves: church, state, science, politics, even down at the bar when we're drinking or when we're on the basketball court playing basketball. They are there, just waiting for a chance to tell people where they should go, what they should do, how they should behave. Always there, trying to force their will on other people because they are empty and can only fill themselves by watching the pain and suffering of others, by beating them down to the extent that they can't find joy and they can't find life. And then once they beat those people down and make them unable to produce, they can say that they are better than them. They're better than the ones who can't produce. They've always said that. But then you see, on purpose, they created the conditions that made people unable to produce. Self-fulfilling prophecy. So what I'm saying is basically we have to mature, we have to grow right now. There's no time for pendulums to swing back and forth from one way of being to the next. There's no time to sit and just pray. There's no time to wait for one generation to die off in the next, because you see most of the time the poison keeps getting spread from one generation to the next. We have to want to be the ones today who change this world. We have to be the ones who make it loving, who make it peaceful. We have the ones we have to be the ones who go and look at our own inner demons and who slay our own inner dragons. We have to do it, each and every one of us. And then, and only then, can we begin to realize our own greatness, because only after that will we be great. We can't call ourselves great while we're spending money on bombs when the streets are full of homeless people or starving children. We can't call ourselves great when it would take $260 billion to recreate the infrastructure and to end all world hunger. It would only take that, and we've spent more than that bombing Ukraine and bombing the Gaza Strip. We're not great. In fact, collectively, as a collective, we're all very sad. It's time for us to turn that around. And if you want to, I'm willing to help, and you can help me. Visit our website, see if you'd like to help, see if you'd like to partake of some of our coaching. And we'll be here over and over again in order to help make the world a better place. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again very, very soon. Namaste, everybody.